Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the first in a series of videos where I'll be going over the last question in each topic of the Maths Genie website. So if you go on mathsgenie.com and you go into the GCSE section, you'll be able to find all these questions that I'll be doing on these videos. I'll be going over how to do them, so exam techniques, and also the kind of things that go on in my mind while I'm trying to do these kind of questions, and possible misconceptions or mistakes that people can make while they are trying to answer these questions. So, the first topic that I'll be going over are recurring decimals and how to write them down in terms of a fraction in its simplest form, and also division. So, in this case, the question is question number 19. It's worth 4 marks, so hopefully I'll be able to get this done in about 4 minutes. And the question is, what is 0.07 recurring divided by 0.185 recurring? So at first, when you're looking at this, you're thinking, oh, let's just use a calculator and try and figure out the answer. Now, unfortunately, you won't get many marks for that. So let's try and break it down and see what is actually going on here. So because we're given 2 recurring decimals, so we have 0.07 recurring and 0.185 recurring, what we probably have to do is convert them into fractions and then divide them. And dividing fractions is a lot easier than dividing recurring decimals. I'm sure we can all agree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this down into 2 parts. The first part will be converting the first decimal into a fraction. The second part will be converting the second decimal into a fraction. And the final part will be getting the answer. So what I'll do is, what I normally like to do anyway, is I like to rewrite the question down so I know what I'll be answering. So I have 0.07 recurring divided by 0.185, and that's recurring. And that equals, now if I can write an answer after this, I know I've answered the question. Alright, so the first part, well, we have 0.07 recurring. And what I'll do is I'm going to write x is equal to 0.07 recurring. These aren't supposed to be tutorial videos of things you should already know, so I'm assuming that a lot of you will already know how to convert these into fractions. If you don't, there are many other videos online. I just want to try and get over how to go about answering certain questions. All right. So over here, I know I've got 1 decimal that's recurring, and normally what you would do in this case is multiply it by 10. Multiply both sides by 10 to give us 0.7 recurring. And then you could do your 10x minus x, and then go from there. And I'm actually going to write that on this side. So what you would do is maybe you would do 10x minus x, which would be the same as 0.7 recurring minus 0.07 recurring. And the reason we're doing this is to get rid of the recurring parts, right? Because the only way to get rid of recurring, it's quite difficult to divide unless you're dividing by the same recurring aspect. But in this case, we are trying to just get rid of the whole recurring part by taking away. So 10x minus x would give us 9x. 0.7 recurring minus 0.07 recurring. So everything after the 10th column would be taken away by the second number, which means that we would just be left with 0.7 because everything after that would have been taken away. Now the next step would be to divide both sides by 9. And that looks like kind of an answer, but because we don't like decimals in our fractions, we're just going to multiply both a numerator and denominator by 10, and we should end up with 7/90. Now that is a way of definitely figuring it out. I, however, would not do it this way. The only reason is because when you work with decimals inside a fraction, it's a high chance of making a silly mistake somewhere, so you might want to multiply something by 10 and end up only multiplying the 0.7 by 10, or you might have multiplied by 100 accidentally. So I think to work a bit safer, what I would do is if we go back onto the left-hand side, I would also write 100x, which would then be 7.7 recurring. And what I like to do is I like to get all my recurring parts as close to the decimal point as I can. And then when I do my subtraction, what will happen is there won't be anything after the decimal point left. Right? So here I will do my 100x minus my 10x. And this way I'm left with 7.7 recurring minus 0.7 recurring. So the recurring aspects of these decimals will then cancel each other out. So we'll be left with 90x is equal to 7, no recurring, no decimal. I can divide both sides by 90. And there we go. So in both methods we get the same answer, but I prefer the left method just because I don't like to work with decimals within fractions, just to decrease the chance of getting something wrong. All right, that's the first part done. So we have completed the left. So we have completed the 0.07. Now, the next part is 0.185. So again, I'm going to do the same thing, but instead of calling it x, I don't want to repeat the letter x, so I'll just write y instead. It doesn't really make a difference. You can use A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Any letter in the alphabet will do. And I'm going to repeat the same thing, but this time I don't have one decimal recurring. I have 3 which are recurring. Now, a good way to go about doing these types of questions is you multiply it by the number of decimals that are recurring. So in this case, you are multiplying by 1,000 because there are 3 decimals recurring. So if you were to multiply it by 10, then we would end up with, I'll actually show you, so 185, 185, 185, 185. So this is our decimal, what it would normally look like if I was to get this. And if I move it down here, so that's what it looks like. All right, so we have all of it lined up. Now, if I was to move all of it one to the right, what will happen is the decimal point will go here, it'd be 1.85, and then they're lining up in a very awkward way. If I was to repeat it again, multiply by 10 again, I would end up with 818 where the 1 and the 5 line up, but again, I don't want that. And if I were to multiply by 10 again, so I'm now multiplying it by 10 for the third time, which is multiplying by 1,000, and now you can see how the 1, 8, and the 5 line up, so they'll be able to cancel each other out. Right? So, I'll be multiplying by 1,000, so 1,000 y is equal to 185.185 recurring. And now I can do 1,000 y minus y, which will be the same as 185.185 recurring minus 0.185 recurring. And here again, we can see that everything after the decimal place will cancel each other out after the decimal point. So here we have 1,000, take away 1, which is 990y, 999y, that will leave us with 185. We divide both sides by 999 to get 185 over 999. Now you could leave it like this. In the first case, when we had the 7 over 90, we knew that couldn't be simplified because 7 and 90 don't have any common factors apart from 1. In this case, however, they can be simplified, and I think it's better to do it this way just because it'll be easier to do the calculations later on. This actually simplifies to 5 over 27 because both of these numbers can be divided by 37. Right? Okay, so I think that's it. That's the end of it. We've solved the question, haven't we? Actually, we haven't. So a lot of people might think that because they have formed the fractions, they might have finished the question. But what this question is actually asking us is to find out the answer to 0.07 recurring divided by 0.185 recurring. We haven't written an answer here, which means we haven't finished the question. Okay, so even though we have done quite a lot, we haven't actually finished the question. So Our main values are, I'm just going to rewrite them. So we have x was equal to 7/90, and this was the same as our 0.07 recurring. And our y was 5/27, which was the same as our 0.185 recurring. So if we're doing 0.07 recurring divided by 0.185 recurring, it is the same as doing x divided by y, which in this case would be 7/90 divided by 5/27. Now, there are different thoughts on how to divide fractions. Some people like their KFC, so some people might like to do something that's like keep, flip, change. I've seen other students who like to do leave, kiss, flip. I'm guessing the kiss comes from because it turns into an x or a multiply sign. Whichever way you want to do it, it's perfectly fine. So that'll be the same as 7/90 multiplied 27/5. This gives us 189/450. That's the same as 21/50. And if you want to, you can leave your answer as decimal because this does give us quite a nice decimal of 0.42. All right, so if we go back up there, we can write our answer as 0.42. And there we have it. We have now completely and fully answered the question. All right, so just a very quick recap. The first thing we did was we converted 0.07 recurring and 0.185 recurring into their fraction forms, giving us 7/90 and 5/27. Then we did the calculation we were asked to do by doing 7/90 divided by 5/27. And that's where we got our answer, 0.42. It's 4 marks. It took longer than 4 minutes because I was doing a lot of explaining, but I'm pretty sure you can all manage to do this in under 4 minutes. All right. If you have any questions about this method, any input at all, please do leave it in the comment section below. And stay safe.